there has, as you all know all too well, been a very large number of inquiries coming out of the Department of Health, coming out of the Royal Colleges into various aspects of the service. Perhaps it would be a good idea to hear what happens if you have an inquiry that doesn't come from insiders. So I was invited to do this precisely because I was enormously ignorant. Now, that's not often a qualification in this life, and of course I learned a certain amount as I went along, but it was, I think, my principal qualification, bar one. Why on earth did I accept? Now, I accepted for a reason that is, I think, comprehensible. Both my daughters-in-law had babies in the same hospital in the years just before I accepted. Both thought it was filthy, and both thought they wouldn't go there again, and one of them was called back for a TB test, along with many other women who were called back and had TB. So I thought maternity safety is really an issue. And I'm sorry to say that the issue that stimulated me to say yes to doing this work was one that we were unable to investigate because we do not have adequate statistics on maternal morbidity because we don't collect them, and I'm told we still don't collect them. We're great on maternal mortality and, of course, on infant mortality. So it was a short inquiry. We had to use what you might call a dipstick approach. We talked with groups of very knowledgeable midwives, obstetricians, we visited certain hospitals, we listened hard, we learnt a lot. And of course, the things that we concluded will be entirely familiar to you, but what we thought we saw was a great deal of good practice, in some ways, sometimes hampered by structures, hampered in various ways. I may say, and this is not a thought that is forgotten, that the thing we most often heard from midwives is, we're rushed off our feet, there aren't enough. But we didn't find very clear correlations between staffing levels and safety levels. That was interesting. But we did find that people weren't terribly aware of safety levels. Some people were acutely aware, but we visited some hospitals where, for example, they had quite outlying profiles. For example, they had very much higher rates of intervention than on the national average, and if asked, they didn't actually know that their rates of intervention were higher than average, and if they were told they were higher than average, in several cases we got an explanation of why. The explanation usually, frankly, said there was something peculiar about the local population. They were too old or too ignorant, but it was intriguing. Why were there these differences? Now, you all know that some of the conclusions we drew were that the places that were doing a fantastic job, doing best, were actually very aware of safety. They thought about it. And they were very aware of the pinch points. They were very aware of the difficulty of messages getting lost when there is a handover. They were very aware that maternity services have to deal with an exceptional number of handovers. Unfortunately, most of us, when we're giving birth, just take too long and it doesn't fit neatly with shifts. It's a pity, but true. And of course, there are also shifts between midwives and obstetricians. There are shifts of location, there are shifts from home to unit, there are shifts within hospitals, and so on. And that question of communication and continuity of communication and continuity of care was something that seemed to come up again and again in the evidence we received. And what also came up was the reality that some people had worked out ways of doing it, however many handovers they had to have. So beyond communication, teamwork, we realized that people working in smaller units didn't encounter certain emergencies very often, and that the training they were getting was very much away day training But when they had to encounter such an emergency, it was in fact with their colleagues locally where they worked, and maybe they hadn't practiced it as a team. So I think our fundamental message was about, and it sounds so banal, doesn't it? It sounds the most ordinary thing that anybody could have told any of us in any walk of life from the start. But actually, the quality of communication is important. By communication, I should just add as a footnote, and then I will shut up and listen hard, we did not mean recording things, keeping the statistics. We realized that a great burden had been put on the service to provide a statistical record for others, and that in some units people found themselves repetitively entering the same information so that non-communicating IT systems could store it. I say could store it because it wasn't very clear to us how useful it was after it was stored. Information is for people who are working on the front line in the service, and that's what we meant by communication. And you are the people who meet the tough cases and the routine cases, and I'll be very interested to hear what you have achieved in the last 2 years. Thank you very much.